CNN's David Chalian is right there at the wall, which only means one thing. There is a new exclusive poll. David.
Our final national poll of this 2024 race. And what does it show in this stable race? A tied race, dead heat among likely voters. 47% Harris, 47% Trump. It obviously doesn't get closer to that. And I want to show you what this race has looked like over time. It has been remarkably stable. This goes all the way back to when Joe Biden was still running in August of last year. You saw it was a 47-46 race there. You see here the red line, the Donald Trump line. He's never been behind outside the margin of error, statistically trailing in this race the entire time that we have polled this race. Let's look at it by party ID here, Dana. You see overwhelmingly Democrats are with Harris, as you would expect. Overwhelmingly down here, 92% of Republicans are with Trump. Harris is getting about 7% of Republicans. I know she's making a big play for some of those Trump-resistant Republicans of late we've seen. And look at the independents. It's actually within the margin of error of that subgroup. So there's no real clear leader with independents, but numerically, Harris has this slight higher number there. And we've been talking a lot about the gender gap in this race. It's a little smaller in our poll overall than we've seen in some other polling. But among likely voters, Harris is +6, 50% to 44% with women, and Donald Trump is +6, equally 51% to 45% with men. That is a 12-point gender gap.
Now, this is a national poll, as we have said until we're blue in the face, and we'll continue to say. Remind people that that is not how presidents are chosen. It's by the Electoral College and in battleground states. However, what this poll is telling us is some of the reasons why this race is so close in those battlegrounds as well. What is some of what you're learning behind those numbers?
Right. So, you know, lots of people on the Democratic side of the equation say, how could it be possible that it's tied? Why is Harris not running away with this? Well, it's the environment that she's running in. We asked folks, your financial situation over the past year. So today compared to a year now, a plurality, nearly half, 49% say they are worse off today financially than they were a year ago. 35% say they're about the same. Only 16% say they're better off. I'll also just say we have Joe Biden at a low approval rating at 36% in this poll. We have the wrong track number. 7 out of 10 Americans say we're in the wrong direction. Things aren't going well. It's a rough environment if you're running in the incumbent party. So what does that mean then? Why isn't Donald Trump running away with it if that's the environment? Well, here's one issue. Look at Kamala Harris's domination with the issue of abortion and reproductive rights. She is running a 21-point margin ahead of Trump on trust to handle that issue. A little bit protect democracy is an advantageous category for her. Trump still doing his best on immigration. He's got a 16-point lead over Harris. On the economy, a 13-point lead. And on foreign policy, a 10-point lead. But that abortion and reproductive rights number, that's one of the reasons Donald Trump is not yet running away with this race. And then who's left in this race, Dana? 89% of likely voters in this poll tell us their mind is made up. 9% say they could change their mind between now and casting their ballot, though I will say a large swath of these folks, they're not extremely motivated to vote the way that the folks who already made up their mind are. And only 2% of voters at this point, likely voters, say they have no first choice in this race, Dana.
All right, David, thank you. We'll see you in 1 second here at the table. We want to point out that that is our new national poll. In 6 of the 7 swing states, CNN's polling averages also show virtual ties. We haven't gotten enough quality polls out of Nevada to do an average there. And as of this morning, nearly 33 million Americans have already voted, including nearly 10 million in those 7 states. Joining me now at the table is Jackie Kucinich of the Boston Globe, Cleve Whitson of the Washington Post, and poof, here he is. David Chalian made his way from the magic. I mean, it is called the magic wall.
Yeah.
Maybe it helped. I mean, these numbers are so interesting, particularly some of what you started to show us about the crosstabs. I mean, it is inside politics. I can say crosstabs.
The lingo.
Yeah, I know. We love the lingo here. And as well, first of all, just your takeaway, your overall takeaway of what you just saw.
I think this explains a lot about why Democrats are so nervous, right? Like Harris was supposed to rebuild this coalition from Obama to kind of wash away the fears about Joe Biden, and she's not really sort of running away with it in a way that there's concerns about black men voting, there's concerns about Arab Americans in Michigan, and it just means that at the very end you're going to have Democrats and Republicans, but Democrats too, very nervous at the end.
And yes, about the Obama coalition because he won twice, but it looks like she has rebuilt the coalition, or brought the Democratic ticket back from where it was when Joe Biden was still at the top of the ticket, which was no small thing.
Which was one of the only things that moved this race,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Was that debate and him leaving the ticket. Otherwise, you're right, it's been absolutely stable. And even then, it kind of evened out again, right? There was that boost initially with Harris, and now we're back in this neck and neck. The other really interesting thing I think about this poll is you can really see in a crystal clear way why the candidates are talking about what they're talking about right now. They're both in Texas. Harris is going to be talking about abortion. She's talking a lot about democracy. Trump is talking about immigration. He talks a lot about the economy. And when we've been in the States talking to voters, talking to people who haven't cast their votes yet, not one of those 33 million people, that is the economy and immigration, the Trump curious, the Trump leaning voters. Those are the things they talk about the most.
Yeah. Let's sort of staying on Harris and how she is trying to
What's up?
Hi, Judah. We brought you here today to
focus on some of the issues that pop in this poll, and clearly in the data that they have inside the campaign. Abortion. How abortion could affect your vote. Candidate must share your views, 31%. One of several factors, 50%. Not a major issue, only 19%.
It's got salience, and I have been talking to Harris advisors about this, trying to press them if they think the abortion issue is as salient as it proved to be in the 2022 midterms, right on the heels of Roe versus Wade being overturned with the Dobbs decision. And their theory of the case is it is, and maybe even more so, because they believe, and this is part of the stories that you hear Harris telling on the trail, their theory is, back in 22, we saw in some states like New York with the Democratic governor Kathy Hochul, or in Michigan with the Democratic governor like Richard Whitmer, that perhaps some voters weren't thinking that abortion rights were really endangered because there were these Democratic elected officials and legislatures. Now the stories of what women are experiencing in some of these states with bans, that is breaking out nationally. That's not a story only being told in their state. And the Harris campaign believes that is part of what is keeping the issue so salient.
Yeah, and they're focusing on women. Sorry, Dana. Okay. They're focusing on women who really want to be pregnant. Like a lot of these ads that you're seeing, they're people who really want to start families, and because of complications, ended up in this web of confusion that are some of the laws in these states. And I think that's been also a very interesting part of this race.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of what she's going to do when she goes to Texas today. We actually have a couple who tell that very story later in the program. Okay, so that's abortion, and this is just sticking on the Harris side of the equation right now. Then the other thing that she's doing in her closing argument is Donald Trump is unstable and unhinged, and he's only out for himself. The question, Trump's pledge to go after enemies if elected, reason to vote against him, 50%. Doesn't make a difference, 26. Reason to vote for him, 24.
Yeah, you kind of long for the days when the worst thing they said was weird, right? Now they're leaning heavily in these final days into darkness, into fascism and all that stuff. And like Jackie said earlier, you can kind of see why they're saying the things they're saying, because it is clear that a large swath of the electorate sees that danger, sees that argument is resonating with them.
Yeah, I mean, that is a clear example when 50% of the electorate, these are likely voters, right, say, because you are promising to use the office to go after your political enemies, that's a no-go for me. Like that makes you a less attractive candidate. We see it about his demeanor and temperament. We see it about his age. These are negatives on Trump, and it answers the question, well, why isn't, given everything we just said about the environment that Harris is running in, why isn't Trump running away with it? Abortion's one answer, but Donald Trump's behavior is clearly another part of this equation, as are his criminal convictions. These things we got so discounted a lot in the Republican primary, and they get discounted sometimes in our mind because it's like, but the whole Republican Party is still unified around him. But the total, and he's more popular than ever. All those things are true, but they are still weights around him because I think without them, Donald Trump may be running away with it.